So, in between the normal Family Guy clips that I get recommended to me here on YouTube, I had this video recommended to me by Doug DeMuro. It was titled, "Here's Why I Can't Get Excited About New Supercars." And I listened to the video while I was eating here at this lovely taco stand. And I think that Doug made a lot of interesting points that I relate to, and I think that it explains my waning interest in cars and why bikes have severely taken over in my life. Let's gear up and go for a ride and talk about all these different points that Doug DeMuro talked about in his video.
So before we get into the topic of the video, I just want to say Doug DeMuro is somebody I've been watching ever since high school. I've been watching that man for years, and I have a great deal of respect for what he does and how he makes his videos. I am in no way trying to come at Doug DeMuro, and I actually think that he's right in a lot of the things that he says. So with that being said, one of the first things that Doug complains about in his video is how supercars are getting too expensive. I wholeheartedly agree with this statement. Supercars are just flat out unattainable for working a normal job. I don't think it's insane to say that it is basically impossible to work a normal job, like a 9 to 5, your entire life, and never be able to afford a legitimate supercar, like a Ferrari, Lamborghini. It is insane how much they cost. They cost more than a good house in a nice area. It's absolutely insane how much supercars are going for these days, and that's why motorcycles, brand new superbikes like the Ducati V4 that was just announced, that I'm personally really into, starts at $25,000, the price of a Honda. It's cheaper than a Honda Civic. And if you want the V4S, which is like the crazy fancier version of the V4, still only $33,000 for a brand new 2024 or 2025. I'm sorry, I forgot. The electronic suspension, aluminum forged wheel, crazy amount of horsepower. It's nuts what you're paying for what you get. Yeah, there are like hyperbikes, like insane expensive hyperbikes like the Ducati Superleggera V4, which is low-key in a class of its own, but don't need to spend a lot of money to get an insanely powerful bike, because a lot of the times what ends up happening is people are not limited by the bike that they ride. They are limited by the skill in which that they possess. Really, anybody can save up or take a loan out on a motorcycle and get an insane amount of performance out of it. Some of the most insane performance that you can get on motorcycles. Car world has just fallen away from that. So another point that he brings up in his video is the fact of accessible speed. There are cheaper cars with the same amount of speed, if not better. Which, to that point, I am amazingly riding the motorcycle that I counter-argue against superbikes all the time. And here we go, just fitting through here. Excuse me. I love California, dude. So more accessible cars for lower costs makes sense. And this bike is kind of like that to the superbike. So let's say $25,000 for a brand new Ducati V4 might be a little bit out of reach. This bike is half the cost, $10,000 less, starts at $13,000. You can buy a Ducati 698 and get, to be honest with you, 99% of the thrill and the excitement that you get from a Ducati V4 in just $13,000. With a decent down payment and a loan, dude, like, you are paying basically nothing for a vehicle that gives you an insane amount of enjoyment, takes you to the same places that a supercar would, or a superbike, and you're getting all the enjoyment of a 200 horsepower bike in a smaller package, while also, for the most part, dodging tickets. Oh, this road's awesome, dude. I just wish I'd have this stupid Honda in front of me. I don't know these roads well enough to pass them on the corner. That's not a good idea. Rider skill. That's another point that Doug DeMuro talks about in his video, talking about how he's not excited about supercars anymore. Gone are the days of the manual transmission from supercars. They just don't exist anymore, bro. Even in like regular consumer cars, I almost bought a BMW M2 solely for the fact that you could still get that car in manual. There's just something about having a clutch that makes a vehicle 10 times better. Now, I think bikes are better in this sense because they have like these semi-automatic transmissions now, which is kind of what I'm riding right now. I still have to use the clutch whenever I want to go to pop a wheelie, or I come to a stop, I have to use the clutch in and out. But if I don't want to use the clutch, I don't have to, but I still have full control over what gear I'm in. The computer is doing absolutely nothing, which I love. I don't like a computer deciding what gear I want to be in. In the future, I'm sure bikes are going to have these more like automatic transmissions where you just hit a button and it just starts to shift for you. But in the meantime, I think that this is perfect. I have a quick shifter when I want to use it, or if I want to use my clutch like that, I can. It's not a big deal. I just prefer having the quick shifter because it sounds cool, it feels fun to use. But I still have full control if I want to. And I'm deciding what gear I'm in, not the bike. Speaking of computers, that takes me to my next point that Doug was talking about in his video, is that cars don't have souls anymore. Doug was talking about these hybrid systems that they're adding in the cars, which I don't personally like. These supercar performance companies are adding hybrid systems to their car, which, yes, does increase the speed of the car. On paper, yes, the car is going to get a faster 0 to 60 time. It's going to get a 1/10 of a second faster around the track. But is that going to make a better car? No, not necessarily. To this day, Kawasaki is the only motorcycle company that has added a hybrid system to their motorcycle. And it sucked. Nobody liked it. It's not selling well. I mean, I'm talking to like any of my salesman buddies. It's not selling well. Because who wants to buy a hybrid motorcycle? It doesn't make sense. When you're buying a vehicle for the soul and excitement, you don't want to buy something with an electronic system. You want to be able to hear the engine. The electronic system adds just complexity, makes things harder to work on, which is a whole topic about supercars within itself. But regardless, it is just complexity for the sake of performance. And at a certain point, the performance just doesn't become worth the trade-off of making an objectively worse vehicle to drive, a less interesting vehicle to ride. Because let's be real, we're not riding these vehicles or driving these vehicles on a track. We're driving them, hopefully, if you live in a nice area like this, because I don't live here. This is freaking awesome. Yeah, these are like really nice roads that you can go pretty fast around, but at the end of the day, they are public roads. You never know what's going to be on the other end of that blind corner over there. So yes, I can appreciate I have a performance vehicle that I can still go very quick on these roads, but I'm never going to go full balls to the wall out here. That's just unreasonable. Again, it's performance for the sake of just saying that you have something with higher performance than somebody else. It's a dick measuring contest. The Ducati V4 and the S1000 are constantly going at each other's throats, just trying to become a 1/10 of a second faster around the track, but they're not sacrificing the soul and the capability of the bike. If anything, they're becoming more streetable because they're making them smoother and more street friendly, so they become better bikes to ride around the city while also becoming better around the track. And that brings me to my next point about Doug DeMuro's video, in which he was talking about he doesn't like the styling of new supercars. Now I get it, this is a little bit more opinion based, and I can't really control his opinion on how he feels about brand new supercars, and I can't really control on how people feel about brand new superbikes either. In my humble opinion, again, this is, a very opinionated video, but in my opinion, I think superbikes are getting much better looking. Compared to the superbikes of 20 years ago, like the boxy shape, I get there's probably going to be somebody out there who likes it. I'm not saying it's bad, but in my opinion, and I think that this is probably the more popular opinion, I think bikes are getting better looking over time. It's a comparison of the popular opinions between the popular opinion of supercars are getting more ugly, while I think the majority of people would agree that bikes are getting better looking. Again, my last point is just going to come down to money. As cars become more of a tool and a status symbol of the ultra wealthy, motorcycles, I think, are becoming more of a symbol for the working class. I think even I get a lot of comments of people being like, oh wow, you got daddy's money buying all these bikes, when in reality, I'm making probably about the same that my dad, who's a fireman, makes on YouTube. There's no world in which I could afford a supercar, bro. There's just not. Yeah, with like sponsorships and like selling out fully, yeah, I could probably afford a supercar. And that as a kid, I really wanted to own a supercar. You ask Matthew Woods fucking 10 years ago, probably would do that. Through my lived experience, I've just not become that person anymore. Supercars are just too expensive for regular people to enjoy. Affording these bikes on a regular working class salary is very possible and attainable. Even the fanciest of sport bikes, R1s, V4s, I've talked to so many people who work regular working class jobs who can afford these bikes. And so that's a big reason to me why these things are still so special. This is a vehicle, this is a hobby I can take with me for the rest of my life without having to worry. One day, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all this stuff is going to dry up and I have to go get a job, which is, a big reason why I'm staying in college. And I just know I don't have to change anything about the way that I live. I can continue to afford and ride motorcycles for the rest of my life, so long as I am able to stand and work. So thank you, motorcycles, for staying inexpensive and staying cool. I love this thing. And so yeah, no hate to Doug DeMuro or anything. I think his video is actually pretty excellent. I think he is making an excellent critique on how supercars are just becoming way too expensive. I just wanted to use his video and his platform, possibly gathering some of his viewers, to talk about my favorite hobby in the world, and that is motorcycles. If you guys enjoyed this little discussion today, make sure you hit the like button. It helps me out and helps push this video out to spread a more positive message about motorcycles. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.